Welcome to The Ethical Advocate for Accidents.
Welcome back to The Ethical Advocate for Accidents with James K. Sadigh. For more than 3 decades, James has represented injured Californians with one goal: to make sure every client gets real attention, real answers, and real results. I'm Kevin Rosenquist, and today we're talking about something many accident victims wonder. If the big billboard firms are everywhere, why don't they always deliver the outcomes their ads promise? James, welcome back.
It's good to be with you again.
Absolutely. We touched on this a little bit before. I think maybe it was just in our kind of pregame conversation. We talked a little bit about the big billboard attorneys and stuff. And you've practiced law in Los Angeles long enough to see the rise of these huge advertising-driven injury firms. What differences have you noticed in how those firms handle clients compared to attorneys who take a more personal one-on-one approach?
Well, one of the obvious one is that you will never see the person on those billboards actually talk to the client and handle the case.
Mm-hmm.
I personally know a couple of them. And it's funny when we sit down and talk, they don't even know the address to the court. They don't even know that the court doesn't have a valet parking. In one episode, one of them was boasting that when I go to a particular court, I give my car to a valet parking, and every one of us started laughing because there is no valet parking in that court. Most of these billboard attorneys are basically brokers. They are up there, they spend the money. They're extremely sharp business people, and I have a lot of respect for quite few of them. And they're very good people, but they don't practice law. They take the cases. They have a large number of personnel, and if that team of personnel that are mostly paralegals are able to just resolve the cases real fast, fine. If not, they contracted to other law firms or lawyers or solo practitioners to litigate it and get their referral fee.
Mm-hmm.
There is no personal attention.
Mm-hmm. When clients come to you after working with one of these large firms, what are the most common frustrations that they share with you?
That what they told to William, who was handling the case for them, 2 weeks later, Carlos had no idea about it and had to go through it again.
Mm-hmm.
That they pressuring the client to settle the case for the first offer that came from the insurance company. Or another complaint is that they forced me to go to a particular doctor, and even though I didn't like the treatment I was receiving from the doctor, they told me if I change my doctor, it will affect the value of my case. In one other aspect, I also heard that they forced them to, not force them, but encourage them to receive the type of a treatment that the client was not comfortable with. And the whole thing was, this way we can make more money for you fast.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So when someone calls one of these places, who are they talking to?
Well, the first phone call that they make, usually there's someone who just answers the phone, maybe not even in a law office. But
Mm-hmm.
the
Like
better
call
ones,
center?
it's a little like a call center. But the better ones have their own receptionist or one of the paralegals answering the phone. And a lot of times, a good marketing happens because they say, oh, where are you? We're going to send one of our representative come to you. You don't even need to come to us. And of course, they send somebody there who is not a lawyer most of the time, sometimes not even a paralegal. And they go in there, they have a form, they start getting some basic information. And the only interest they have is to get the client's signature on the retainer agreement and go. The problem is that a lot of times nobody that goes and talk to these clients can sit down and actually spend enough time to find out exactly what is it that client needs. What is their real purpose on wanting to talk to a lawyer? I get a lot of phone calls from people, and I realized they know they don't have a case, but they just need to make sure. So I spend a few minutes and explain it to them. They don't get that any explanation from us.
Right. Right. You're more of a number in those situations.
Absolutely. And how would you know that this patient or this client who is complaining of a pain should go to a urgent care, emergency room, or a chiropractor?
Mm-hmm.
They're in this type of a billboard attorney thing, they're all encouraged to do exactly the same. There's a formula.
There's a formula. Yeah. There's a roadmap that they have.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas every person has a different need.
Yeah. Everybody's unique. Yeah. And you personally handle every client's case from start to finish. Why do you feel like that level of direct involvement is so important to an injury law case?
Because every time you talk to the client, you learn something new. And sometimes you find out that before presenting your settlement package or argument to the insurance company and or to the defense attorney on the other side, that you will find an answer that you said, oh my God, I had a different understanding of this situation. This particular evidence or this particular medical bills is not as good as what I thought it was, not that the client is explaining what he or she went through, or the other way around. I didn't think that's that important, but now I realize that actually I can use this and it's more important. A lot of times also comes down to this. What is, again, your client's purpose and need for bringing a claim? Majority of the times, of course, they want to be compensated. Of course, they want money for their pain and suffering and emotional distress or out-of-pocket expenses. But sometimes all they want and is more important to them is to receive proper treatment, to make sure that their health is in a good. It's not just the money. And those are the things that you need to talk. And by the way, if someone was an athlete and was injured, is his or her emotional distress more when he or she cannot do what he was passionate about to do before the accident than a regular person that was not an athlete and doesn't care about the accident? So each one of these times that you talk to the client and you find out, what have you been doing for the past month? What have you been doing for the past 2 weeks? How did it affect you? How did it make you feel? Gives you the argument to the other side. And every one of those has a dollar sign in front of the adjuster. I've had cases that, another thing is that you evaluate your client's credibility and presentation when he or she talks. Sometimes, most of the times, I don't let the insurance adjusters talk to my client. However, I had one particular case that when I had a decent offer, and I told the adjuster, but I want you to talk to my client. And he said, why? I said, she just needs to be heard. Maybe that way we can get this settlement. Now, I can tell you the settlement offer at the time was about $85,000, pretty close to what the value of the case was. And I just made a 15-minute time so that the adjuster could talk to my client directly and for my client to explain her pain and suffering and emotional distress. I had heard it before, the way she had talked. That's why I was sure. Well, guess what? That 15 minutes caused that after the episode was done, in about an hour later, the adjuster offered $35,000 because the adjuster saw that if my client goes in front of the jury, they'll all sit down and cry.
Yeah, and I think, when it comes to the big law firms, I mean, I think most people know a lot of times that the bigger things aren't always better, right? Bigger does not always mean better. And a lot of times you get less service from bigger places, you get more service from a smaller one. But why do you think people assume that in this? Because it seems like something that you want to get this right. You want to get your case set, handled properly. Why not do your digging? Why do they automatically just go for what they saw on TV or on the billboard?
Well, for the good reasons. It's no mystery, and I'm going to be outright. Big law firms have more money. So therefore, if they want to hire experts and go to trial, they can afford to do it better. And if they have a case or two going to the jury trial, they don't have to shut down the office because they have other personnel to take care of the business of the office. Whereas when you have a very small office, that would be a problem. In that sense, people are correct. However, when a small law firm or a one-man attorney office decides to go to trial, there is a certain conviction in him. He knows that he's risking it all. So therefore, when he puts his time and his money and his effort in that case, there is a better understanding for the client that this particular attorney really believes in my case, that he shuts down his office for 2 weeks and 3 weeks and goes to this jury firm and spends the money. A lot of times you need big law firms to take huge cases like class action lawsuits or magnificent injury cases or something like that, but not all the time. As a matter of fact, in majority of the cases, a smaller office or a one-man attorney office pays more attention because he knows A to Z. And if he decides that he wants to go to trial, better you can depend on that he really believes it.
And obviously not every case needs to go to court to succeed, but there's some that deserve a fight. And do large firms' volume-based systems often affect their willingness to take a case all the way through trial?
Absolutely. It's all about business. It's all about numbers. And for them, just like an insurance company, is an average. Is it worth our advertising money to take this, let's say, $50,000 case to trial? No, it doesn't. It never does. So if on a $50,000 case, they get a $20,000 offer, they will try to settle that case because it's not worth their time and effort and money to go and get. But by way of example, in that sense, they make mistakes. Just like I think in one of the episodes, I brought the example of a case that came to my office from one of the large law firms, and they were pushing my client to accept a $21,000 offer. And I took the case, and without even filing a lawsuit, less than a year later, I settled the case for $300,000 because I was paying attention to it. In large law firms, everything is about numbers. It's not about
It's like anything that, like you said, that's treated like a business.
Exactly. It is all a business for them, and I can't fault them. They have huge expenses to pay. When you're on a billboard and when you're on advertising at least 240 times a day on different channels of the TV, you're spending 7 figures for your marketing. You need that money to keep coming to be able to pay for it.
And quickly.
Exactly.
And quickly. Yeah. Without that specialized care. I mean, the marketing around, a lot of times it's the, no fee unless we win. And this guy got me a $1.2 million settlement and all this stuff, big claims. But those are a lot of times, as we've talked about in previous times, like that, just because they got a $1.5 million settlement doesn't mean that's what somebody made, right?
Oh, that's correct. Because first of all, if not 50, but 40% of the money goes to attorney's fees. And then the cost of litigation. The other thing that people should realize is in good big percentage of these cases, the doctors have not been paid. They are on a lien basis, which means that their bills are going to be paid from the proceeds of the settlement. Now, when you have a settlement 2 years earlier than a jury verdict, you can always go to the doctors and say, doctor, your bill is for $10,000. Our settlements are this much. We can pay you $3,000 or $5,000 right now out of the settlement. And if you don't accept it and we end up in trial, it's going to be 2 years from now. Well, a lot of people will take that discounted now rather than waiting 2 years. So when you put all of those numbers together and the cost of litigation and all of those things, you will realize that sometimes that $1.4 million settlement after trial or verdict after trial or collection after trial may be equal to the $600,000-$700,000 offer they had before the trial. As far as what goes to client's pocket. Those are all the things that needs to be done. But that's not necessarily all the time. Some of these trials, they're doing a fantastic job. The fact is that in these advertisings, you don't know what the client suffered from. Did they lose a limb? Are they showing that? Did they have a surgery that cost $500,000 with aftercare and everything else? Did they have a business contract that because of this injury, they couldn't finish and therefore they had another $200,000-$300,000 worth of loss of earning? Nobody tells you these things in these advertising.
Right.
And if you know all the particulars of the case, was $1.4 million really enough?
So when someone's injured or they want to call an attorney, the first thing that probably pops into a lot of people's minds psychologically is whatever they've seen, heard multiple times. I mean, there's a guy where I live who is all over the TV. Everybody knows him. He's got a nickname, all the stuff. Like he's all over the place. And someone I know actually had an accident and was saying like, oh, I wonder if I should talk to that person. And I was like, well, I talked to some lawyers, so maybe you should think about doing something a little less than the big guys. How do you recommend people slow down, think about what they're doing, and not just immediately call who they see on TV from a psychological perspective?
I think the best thing for them to do is to know that you have, in California, 2 years to bring a lawsuit as far as the statute of limitations. There's no emergency to bring your claim right away. And with that in mind, take a few days. Call up some of your friends, neighbors, relatives who you trust and see what they recommend. Have they had any experience with an attorney that they recommend? Rather than jump and immediately see that 800 number they see on a billboard or the advertisings that 2 o'clock in the morning when they're sitting painfully in front of TV, they see. Because, again, if an attorney is spending so many hours making those commercials and spending so much money on those billboards, does he have time to really look at your case? Or is it other attorneys in his firm or the referral firms or other paralegals that are looking? The second thing is that it's okay, call them. But rather than them interviewing you, you interview them. Ask them particular questions. And then give yourself time and call some other small firms or referrals from your friends and then compare the answers and the way they look at it. And another thing, don't go for somebody who overpromises. Any attorney puts a value on your case. The first few weeks after your injury, it's just marketing you in order to have a signature on the retainer agreement and add you to the inventory. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
Because how can you evaluate the value of a case so early on? You don't know, what kind of a medical treatment this person needs. Is he going to be okay after medical treatment, or is he going to be disabled for the rest of his life? How long is he going to endure? 2 people being in the same accident totally may have different injuries or recovery time or damages. One of them could be, by way of example that they taught us in law school. 2 people are in an accident. They both lose their right hand. One of them is a surgeon. The other one is an accountant. Do they suffer the same damages for the rest of their life?
Yeah.
No. The surgeon who was passionate about doing surgery and was only, let's say, 40 years old, was going to do surgery for another 25, 30 years, but now he doesn't have a hand. He can't do it. If he could, he was going to make $500,000 to $1 million a year. Now he has to settle down for $200,000 a year. The accountant can still do accounting with pain and suffering, definitely, but not as much of a philosophy. Are those two cases exactly the same?
No. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thus the need for the personalized approach and the real, attention to detail and all that stuff. Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I think that's great advice for everyone. That's it for today's episode of The Ethical Advocate for Accidents with James K. Sadigh. If you've been injured and want to work directly with an attorney who personally guides your case from start to finish, visit jamesksadigh.com. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and review. We really appreciate it. James, great seeing you again. Thanks so much for your time.
I appreciate your time in granting me to explain this to you. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.